Imagine seeing an exact replica of yourself, even down to your clothes and your memories. A paranormal doppelganger is a double of a living person. Some are seen transparent, like a ghost. Some are just as real as you and me, even down to the touch. If you see a doppelganger of someone else, this is said to be a sign of misfortune, illness, or bad luck. And you should probably let them know right away, even if they think you're nuts. And if you see your own doppelganger, it can be a sign that you are going to die soon. Some even say they are an evil version of us from another dimension or realm. You think that all sounds crazy, right? Paranormal doppelgangers are seen all around the world, and they have been for thousands of years. So many highly documented cases, including Abraham Lincoln, Queen Elizabeth I, and Catherine the Great. They all saw their doppelgangers and died shortly after. In the 1800s, there was a teacher named Emilie Sagee. The entire student body of almost 50 people witnessed her doppelganger. Her doppelganger appeared so many times that she had to move from one teaching job to the other. 19 teaching positions in 16 years. She couldn't ever see her doppelganger herself, even when everyone else did. Paranormal doppelgangers often look pale, sick, or injured. Sometimes they won't speak or respond when spoken to. Sometimes they will speak or speak to family and friends. Sometimes they will even give advice or guidance, but to be misleading or harmful. And other times they seem to just stalk, scare, and cause mischief, and nothing ever really comes from it. A lot of the time they won't show their face, or they will look down. Some say their eyes look evil or darker, and they get a really bad feeling from them. Some even say they cast no shadow or reflection in the mirror. Sometimes they even move faster than a normal person would. Whatever you do, do not talk to or interact with one. The first story I want to share with you comes from a website called My Haunted Life Too. This was submitted by an anonymous person. I was a sophomore at a university in California when this incident took place. I saw my roommate's doppelganger. I'm not positive, but I think this doppelganger crossed over from a parallel universe. I say that because she looked pretty sinister. She looked exactly like my friend, but she didn't have the sweet smile my friend has. She looked twisted, almost like a reverse mirror image of my friend. The smirk was definitely not anything my friend could have produced. At the time, I'd never heard of a doppelganger, and I still wouldn't call myself an expert. All I know is that I saw something that looked eerily like my best friend. She wore the same clothes, but she had a limp. And later, I realized that everything about her was reversed. Her buttons were on the opposite side of her dress. She looked like a complete reverse mirror image. My friend and I were sitting in the TV room in the basement. It was the weekend. The campus was vacated. My friend decided to go to bed, and a few minutes later, the TV picture started to break up. I tried to fix it, but some movement of some kind caught my attention. I looked towards the stairs and saw my friend walking back down into the basement. I was surprised as she had been falling asleep in front of the TV. I asked her if she was okay, and she didn't say anything. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, I noticed the limp and I noticed the reverse buttons, even though it took a few hours for that to register. The doppelganger said nothing, and the TV corrected itself, so I sat down with her and we started watching some old movie. About an hour later, my friend came downstairs and asked if she could speak to me. For a moment, I was looking at two versions of the same person. I went over to my friend, and before I could point it out, the doppelganger had disappeared, and my friend didn't see her. It was the strangest incident that I had ever come across. This took place in the late 1970s, and my friend would never believe my story. Years later, however, I met her with her family, and she had a limp. Apparently a car crash had caused it. I still wonder if my friend was meant to see her doppelganger and not me. But the doppelganger made no attempt to turn and talk to my friend. She just sat there until she disappeared. The whole thing was a very weird occasion and still gives me the creeps today. Of all the stories that I've come across, this next one that I want to share with you also comes from the website My Haunted Life 2. This story was submitted by an anonymous person. As a family, we love the beach so much that even when it rains, we are out on the beach when we take our yearly vacation. 1 year ago, we were on the beach looking for seashells, even though it was misting and a storm was starting to brew. My husband and our 2 oldest daughters decided to go back to the cottage to eat. Our 4-year-old wanted to continue hunting for seashells. Well, as it happens with kids, as soon as they left, she decided that she wanted to catch up with them. Because they were only about 20 feet away, I called for them to wait on her. I made sure that they had her before I turned away to finish my seashell hunting. I walked for about 20 minutes until the weather started to turn really rough. The mist was heavier and the waves were churning. I have never seen such a rough sea, and so I turned back with a feeling of unexplained dread. I couldn't shake it. I looked out into the ocean, and I could have sworn I saw my 4-year-old drowning in the waves. I knew with absolute certainty that she was safe back in the cottage with her father and siblings, but yet there she was drowning in the rough seas. I started wading into the water to try to help her. I was in a total state of panic. I was crying and absolutely hysterical. I knew that if I went in the water I would drown, but there I was, going, even though I knew that it wasn't really my baby out there. I felt like something wanted me to go into the water so I would die. I had to fight the instinct to help her. Keep in mind that the thing in the water was the spitting image of her. I took off running to the cottage, crying the entire time. My young daughter greeted me at the door. I was never in my life so happy to see her. To this day, I am convinced that the thing in the water was her doppelganger trying to lure me to my own death. I know they say you can only see your own double, but I wonder. I hope I never have to have this happen again. I hope this never happens to anyone who's reading this. The desire to go into the water was stronger than any force I have ever known. And the last real paranormal doppelganger story that I want to share with you comes from a website called Your Ghost Stories, where you can post your paranormal experiences. This story was posted by Leah B. Let me just say, before you read this, that losing someone you love deeply changes you. It rocks your core and brings you to the edge of your faith, whatever it may or may not be. This is me rocked, raw, and spilling my soul. Take it for what it is. She was young, I am young, and this was a tragedy always in the cards for us. These events I'm about to describe to you are my perception of the truth. I can't tell if all the wacky stuff I'm noticing is grief anymore. It's all very heavy. My mother saw my doppelganger several times before passing away. She passed away 7 months ago today. This has been a difficult year. The fact that I'm sharing this is nutty, but what's the harm? If anything, it feels good to share and remember. My mother and I had a difficult relationship. We loved each other very much, but she drank until it caused her enough problems to pass away. I didn't see her for a year before she passed away. So sad. I missed and miss her now terribly. She always had something dark around her. Always. When they say addiction is a demon, I've experienced it from both ends, and it is something otherworldly. I guess they call them spirits for a reason. Anyway, when she was in the hospital, she was telling my aunt that she was seeing me, that I was beautiful again, and that I owned a tea shop. My aunt chalked this up to being ill and still recuperating in the hospital from surgery, but it was repetitive. She was telling her I was coming by frequently, like 4 visits in total, my aunt said. I wasn't aware until coming across a similar story that a doppelganger is associated with death. Meanwhile, the real me had recently lost 40 pounds, straightened my life out, and started working at a diner with a big teacup sign on the front of the building. When my aunt told me the story, unfortunately, my mom was already unconscious and never woke up. I guess my doppelganger did one thing right. She gave my mom peace of mind before passing away. She let her know I was okay, and my aunt said she seemed happy. God, as messed up as people can be, I loved and love my mom so much. I wish I could tell you that I did see her and had peace myself. This is so much more than a ghost story. It's so difficult to write. My doppelganger confronted my mom, or whatever she was. I feel like she helped her and me. Not seeing my mom is one of the biggest regrets of my life. And maybe this is a way of coping with the guilt. Guess I'll never know.